Fair West Workday. It's going to encapsulate more than just one day. I was today making a little bit of income off of some remote work. I've had a few people in the neighborhood, Deandra. I've had one person in the neighborhood, Deandra, um, talk about seeking remote work for some time. Finding piecemealed, worthwhile, legitimate remote work is not something that I've put a lot of time and effort into. But I did have the opportunity, thanks to Tara recently, who I met at a little gathering in South San Pedro. Thanks to Tanya for throwing those things, and Aaron. Um, anyway, I had a chance to work with Tara. And so I got some ideas about what it's like to set up a remote gig that seems legitimate. I'm not talking about seeing something mass sent out on Nextdoor or Facebook. Some of those are legitimate, right? Um, but a lot of them, the sort of remote gig work, I don't think they're all that. I don't think they're all that great, from what I see. Pay is low, hoops to jump through is high, technical obstacles are there, and so depending on your background, that can be really challenging. What's realistic as remote work, I think, is a good one. So this type of remote work that I've been trying to engage in depends on having an in-person connection. Just because it's remote work doesn't mean it's all remote, so call it hybrid, I suppose, if you will. Can really pay dividends to meet someone in person, to have conversations that way, pen and paper, take out some of the barriers that technology inevitably introduces. If anyone else wants to talk about remote work, let me know. In this case, it's working with, how many details to give? Working with a lawyer who has an online platform in which she was able to describe how to go through some of these entries that she puts in, give them a little bit more scrutiny, and then run some actions based on following the preferences that were determined in person. Some people might say, wait a second, why AI solves this sort of stuff? Somebody puts something in a computer, let's say a bunch of jobs that need to be applied for, and then you just say, hey, AI, go fill out all these job applications for me, please. If you're in the camp of people that thinks that's the reality, it's kind of not. Can be, but it's not. That doesn't mean that jobs aren't going away in the name of AI, but if you actually want it done well, a human is still pretty useful. Or at least that's how I'm selling myself, as that useful human instead of using AI that is a piece of shit. Or if you have to work with piece of shit AIs and you need a intelligent human to help you navigate that space, because AI fucking exists in some form. What is it? It's not really anything in particular. These computer algorithms are being relied on more and more, whether you want to call them AI or not, and learning there are insights into how to leverage these algorithms as is done on all sorts of social media platforms, and I'm sure as people are doing in wherever models are being used to replace what previously would have been a little bit more human focused without a computer program filtering. But also, like, for example, job applications. AI is probably used, or I'll say AI. Algorithms are used to try and assist humans at some stage in filtering the important ones to the top, the ones that are worth putting your time and attention into. That sounds fine. And maybe can be and sometimes is fine. It's also a strange workplace. You're soliciting employees now from all over the world, so you can also not only hire someone from anywhere in the world, but you also get inundated with requests from all over the world, I'd imagine. So you do need to think about how to sort things, limit things. I don't know if you get 10,000 submissions or something like that for one job post. That would be pretty silly, right? Pretty frustrating. I have an online forum in which I had to turn off registration because every day I would get like 20 fake account signups. It was pretty annoying. I really didn't feel like putting much time into managing this forum. So I just turned off registration. I can imagine these job application sites, they must get hit pretty hard. And I bet you can hire services and say, like, apply me in all these places. People pay money for it. And then they're like, I applied 800 times. Or maybe they do manually apply 800 times. I don't fucking know anymore. Who's the bad guy? The dumb employees or the asshole employers? Who am I? Walked the dog this morning, like 11 a.m. after the remote work. Holy shit, I talked for 8 minutes about remote work. It was quiet in the park today. Interesting contrast to how much like energy there was in the streets last night. 4th of July, 2 nights ago now. It's July 6th. Because I've been talking for so long, I fell over into the next day. Anyhow, walking home through the streets at 10, 11 p.m. on the 4th of July. It was pretty loud. It was pretty smoky. It's sparked lots of comments amongst neighbors, especially those with dogs. So it's nice to have quiet during the day. Fireworks will be over soon. Mateo? He doesn't care about fireworks. Not yet. Could change. I walked around. I did some chores today. Holy shit, was it hot. Even though I think it's only in the mid-90s, but it felt really hot. That's pretty hot, I suppose. So, I went and ran some errands on my bike up to Whole Foods and did an Amazon return. Kind of sparked in my mind the idea that I get asked a lot or talk to numerous people about QR codes. What are they? How do I use them? And do I need to care about them? Basically. Well, Paul doesn't love it when I say this, but it depends. Those answers all carry the caveat of it depends. But to that end, I thought let's have a little tech get together on later this week on Wednesday. So I posted to the Fair West site so that I could hit Facebook and Nextdoor about a little tech gathering on Wednesday the 9th at a diner here in the neighborhood, Cap's Diner, 11 a.m. I don't know if anybody in the neighborhood watches these. If you do, come to Cap's, or not if you can't make it. I think we'll get a few people out there. I think we'll also have maybe Dave of Dave and Francis, if he's available. Would also be someone not asking so much tech questions, but really giving answers as well. So we might have a couple people out there able to talk about how to use your phone to take a picture of a QR code. Why would you do that? Why would you maybe want to create a QR code? How do we use them in the neighborhood? If you see a flyer with one, how do you should you be worried, or can you make use of that? If you're, for example, returning a product to Amazon, I got some little USB device that I had to return, and so I went through the website of Amazon, click, clack, click, and then did the return menu there, and finally it said take this QR code to a Whole Foods along with your product and they'll take care of you. So took it to Whole Foods, and I think some people might have questions of, wait, how do I do that? Well, what if I did it on my computer and I saw the QR code there? How do I get it onto my phone? You can just take a picture of it. That's what I did. Or you can download an app and you can do all sorts of fancy stuff. But there's often, with QR codes, you can get real simple about it. You don't have to get too fancy. They look a little intimidating, but once you figure it out, from time to time they have utility. And you can impress all your friends by talking about them. So, what else? Sending texts to people in the neighborhood. It's quite a few texts. Some about neighborhood association stuff. I got a letter from Kathy Turner. Oops, I didn't think I was going to say last names. Feel free to bleep that out. From Kathy T. Let's go find that letter. Organizational skills are severely lacking. I'm going to find that letter on camera. Is that is dedication? Right, puppy? Oh. just came in and said, hey, kind of gone that far. Did I leave it in the mailbox? What's that? Well, could I have accidentally thrown it out? That would be dumb. It's probably saying something nice to me. Which is, could use an ego boost. Ta-da! Put it with the other cargo that arrived today. No video editing. Kathy writes a good note. Thanks, Kathy. What else? Looks like Emily S. is connecting to Hillary, and they're looking into what's going on with pollinators in pollinator plants, an event coming up in, I think, September. By a nonprofit that is trying to get all sorts of native flora in more of Albuquerque, pollinators and all that good stuff. Cool. There's a lot of stuff happening in the neighborhood. It's hard to keep track of it all. Hillary's doing a lot. Emily's doing a lot. Barbara's doing a lot. Our vice president, Jocelyn, is really getting involved. Rob and Jenna. This is in no particular order. Paula, I would say, who helped get the grass mowed in the park, kind of just kicked up, just got their attention. Can't talk. Anita's always doing things. And who else? I'm sure I'm forgetting some. Yeah, fair bit happening in the neighborhood. Wonder what else should happen. There's been talk of setting up like coffee in the park dates, and events like that. Promote social opportunities between neighbors, kind of like block parties. It's cool. Maybe I'll have a block party. Maybe I'll do it this Friday. It's Sunday, 5 days. I'm just gonna take a page from South San Pedro's block parties, or at least the ones I've been to. It's bring your own chair, bring a little food to share, or drinky drink, and I'll have a table. I'll try and have some semblance of shade available, and I will either talk if there's too much silence, or I'll shut up if there are too many people talking. That's what I'll bring. And Mateo. And if anybody wants to have a dog over that gets along with Mateo, I'll try and clean up my backyard a little bit more, and the dogs can play back there. That's pretty cool. I think I like that idea. There can be like a dog hangout area and a people hangout area. Yeah. I'm going to make a dog park temporarily in my backyard. And if they shit everywhere, I know how to compost poo-poo. So, what do you think, Tater? You want to have a party? I was blocking his face, but it said yes. Cool. Well, maybe that's what I'm doing this Friday. Let's look at the schedule. Man, I make a mess really, really fast. Friday. Well, one thing to point out is Friday, the Albuquerque Water Authority has a, well, it's not Zoom, it's Microsoft Teams, but they have a rebate thing where you get $20 off if, if you pay your water utility, off your water bill, for watching like a 1 hour class. I forget what this one's on, but they're usually pretty good. So I watch them with other neighbors, and we all get $20 to hang out. It's great. From 12 to 1. I'll actually post the little linky link in the description area. And then a block party would be 6 to 8. Yeah. I'll have I still have Nick Rorman's table. I might need some extra tables. I might be borrowing some tables again from Kathy. Maybe I'll have to buy some tables. Does anyone want to donate some tables? I don't want to buy a table. Does anyone have any folding tables they want to get rid of? I have some office space I can store them in. That way I don't have to keep bothering people all the time. If I had like 2 tables, I think I'd be set. Might already have 2 tables. We'll fashion something the first time. And if anybody wants to like gift lawn chairs or something, or folding chairs, I have some need for them. All right. It's getting fidgety. The state fairgrounds. Whew. It just makes you want to sigh, doesn't it? Not because it's terrible necessarily, just because, good God, there are a lot of opinions, and there's real information, and then there's rumors, and then there's like deep misconceptions in the sort of discourse I hear. It's interesting. It is interesting. If you want to know more about the next 9 months, I have a video that I'll link talking about the contract that was published between Stantec. I think it's Stantec. I went to some Nicole Rogers conversation, and she was not saying Stantec, she was saying a slightly different name. So let me see. Fair. No, what am I saying? Stantec, according to some AI generated overview. Take that for what it's worth. Anyway, if you want to know more about what the public engagement side of things and just overall kind of like what's planned, at least as defined in the contract. So if you believe that the contract has validity and that it's not already a done deal, which, I mean, I'm going to live as if it's not already a done deal and try to participate and encourage others who have interest to participate to whatever level they're comfortable with, so that this potentially very big change can have maybe some vision from us. What is that vision? How do you get cohesion on that vision? How do you make your case well? Complicated questions. So I don't know what's planned. The D6 coalition that has a president, Pete Belletto, who is the community board position. Wait, he's on the board of the TID, the tax increment district that oversees to some degree the money that's being collected from the fairgrounds and from the fairgrounds area, so the casino. So Pete's on this this board, and he's president of the D6 coalition. This company that's been contracted, Stantec, is going to have public engagement sessions. They're going to have plans about how to do public engagement sessions. They're going to come up with 3 different ideas of what to implement based on feedback they get from not only their assessment of the conditions of the infrastructure currently existing at the fairgrounds, but also community input, a viable payback, return on investment. That's outlined in the contract. That's talked about as well in that other video I was just referencing, and then they're going to whittle those from those 3 down to 1. I believe that then gets funded. I don't know if they could do 3 that get funded differently. Not sure. But that whole thing will be taking place over 9 months. In addition to the public engagement that Stantec is going to be hosting, there might be some real benefit in having groups of people getting to know each other and kind of brainstorming ahead of time so that they can hit the ground running even more so. It's a big ask to try and put together those events. To put together the event doesn't seem that onerous, but I think to get something useful out of it is really hard. You're going to get a lot of feedback, a lot of big poster boards with things written down and like word clouds and all sorts of numbers, and then you're gonna like take these things and like number crunch them and quantify them and rank them and be like, this was the top thing and this is this thing and this is therefore more important. And then that all is fine. It's time consuming, but it's fine. And then I think evolving that towards maybe some discussions after brainstorming in that fashion that lead towards, all right, somebody with, based on what they've seen and heard here, try and give a pitch, try and say something, try and say a plan, try and come up with 5 minutes, say useful things about the master plan, give us a viable option, have people just kind of like get up and try, and then people can, give some feedback, give some comments, just think about it, and then maybe at the end try and form some small groups, some teams of people who want to get behind some of the ideas that they heard said, or pair up, and then have a follow-up session a couple of weeks later in which they've had time to write things out a little bit more, flesh this out, and see if it would meet the criteria that Stantec has been hired to look for, to talk about, what are the financial aspects of this, but also from the underpinning of what community benefit does this bring? Does this, who owns this land, or what happens if I don't know. I don't even know the full breadth of questions. That's why this stuff is like challenging, because you don't know. There's a lot to consider. And if you want to consider all opinions, what does that end up looking like? I think East Central Ministries has probably a lot of experience, and people who go there and participate in their potlucks, and that's I think some people overlap between that crowd, and like I'm sure they're not the only ones. There are pockets of and groups that are brainstorming and trying to come up with like a real pitch, and that would also require more than, I think, just volunteer. There's going to be commercial aspects to this. Like if you're making a pitch, you're talking about competing with the idea of the state is almost for sure interested. The governor's office, the impression I get is they want a walkable neighborhood, they want more housing, they want some nice amenities. I don't know about the retail, but they probably need some mix in there. They want to do something significantly large. They've got a lot of space to do it, so I think I think there's no doubt we're going to see some like really big development ideas coming forward, and so if the community is going to come up with things, there's going to be a lot of different opinions. Some people are going to want like really radical radically different, I should say, than what I just described, what I think the state or the governor's office wants. And they're gonna, whether like green space, open space, I don't know. Like, we'll see which ideas sort of do get the most, not just like community support by people raising their hands and saying like, yeah, no, I don't believe in just an open park, but I do believe that there should be lots of green space, and it should be more open. I mean, right now the state fair, during most of the year, I mean, I know the gates are open, but like, if I'm biking to La Mesa neighborhood, I bike around the state fair grounds. I don't bike through. I don't think I could. maybe I could, because I don't know if their security is very tight, but I bet it's pretty solid. I might be able to talk my way through, but really, I don't think you can. And so it'd be nice, I think, if this kind of barrier was not there in the same way. I don't want to see, like, I would not, if the state is pushing real hard for more housing, depending on your perspective, if you won't want to have influence over that particular option, I'm not saying it's the best option, but if you want to have some influence over that, I think one thing would be to argue against it being gated off. And so currently there's a big wall around the state fairgrounds. Maybe we get rid of that wall, or we have more penetrations through that wall. We have access through there. It is next to an arterial roads, and so other neighborhoods have walls along their sides that people can walk through. Sometimes they have nice art, so that could be an interesting way or thing to try and get included in a plan that would put a neighborhood there that is focused on walkability, so that it's not just like a gate at the front, which I wouldn't think it would be, but like, I don't know, that would be one thing that I would advocate for. So I guess for community engagement, I would hope that the D6 Coalition might be interested in hosting some workshops in which we pregame what and test and try and field what people like in terms of coming up with 3 big ideas, and then maybe allow people to break into sort of like teams in which they try and think about what represents the community well for this idea, for this idea, and for this idea. And at least one of those ideas should be what we think that the state is most interested in. And that way, if we think that the state is just like, we're doing this, and like, oh yeah, community input, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, maybe they won't accept something that's not in line with some of their principles of adding more housing and dumping a bunch of money over here. So in that case, we'll need to have community input on that path. Things like, I would say, don't make it gated. Questioning, maybe trying to describe it as, maybe we could have some input over what the ownership looks like. Maybe it wouldn't just be renters, if these are townhomes, because instead of just building apartments, there may be some apartments and then there may be some townhomes. Maybe there's a spectrum of housing that exists within it, right? Some studios, some 2 bedrooms for small families, and then space for larger families as well. And so maybe you could graduate through in this neighborhood. That could be interesting. And if they're going to add a lot of people in this area, how about a school? Like, is that what we're talking about? Are we going to have like another school there? Urgent care, that could be a real thing. And then, I don't know. We have some urgent cares already close by, but commercial space, where maybe not just on the outside, but if it's walkable, what's that mean in terms of parking? I think, maybe it'll be interesting to experiment not having to have big parking lots attached for everything. Can we change along San Pedro? Can we, San Pedro there for a little while becomes kind of a highway. Does this project entail also some traffic safety considerations, essentially slowing down traffic, reducing the speed at which these cars are racing by making alterations to the road there, called a road diet. Look at San Pedro north of Lomas. It's different. There's a reason it's different. So this is potentially an opportunity to make some of those differences come further down south. Revitalize San Pedro Partnership probably has a bazillion things to say about that. Useful, interesting things. They're a good organization, in my not so humble opinion. Check them out. Oh my God, 41 minutes. Oh. The Alley Project. South San Pedro has alley projects. Mile High has some alley projects. Alvarado Park. Now Fair West. We're hopping on the bandwagon. So, how many alleys do you think there are in Fair West? Ask Nick Rohrman. He knows way more than I do about that stuff. But there aren't many. But if you didn't know, part of our neighborhood is that little southwest area of the fairgrounds quadrant where there's the U-Haul and there's Lignin and there's Studio D and there's State of the Heart and there's like a craft cannabis place. Anyhow, that area has an alley that runs parallel to Lynn, and it ends at California and at San Pedro. And people used to be camping in that alley and doing all the things that draws attention from the police and upset calls from neighbors to that alley. And so the city last year, I think, put up gates and locked it and put up a fence to that alley. So it's been not completely resolving the issues as far as I've heard from neighbors over there, but I bet it has brought down the numbers significantly of people in the alley, not necessarily people in that neck of the wood, in that part of the neighborhood being out on the streets a lot. So that alley is just kind of like sitting there as dead space in a lot of ways. Utilities, I believe, still use it, but we're trying to make contact. The royal we at the moment, are trying to make contact with the neighbors that are all touching the alleyway, and I've talked to a few of them so far. They're all interested thus far in cleaning up that alley, and maybe we haven't gotten down to the details quite yet that are agreed upon as to how to beautify it, whether we put down mulch, put in some trees, planters, things like that, maybe have like essentially a private green space for the people and the businesses over there. But that still allows access if utility needs to get back. Doesn't have to be that expensive. Doesn't have to be too contentious. Don't have to have tons of meetings. But so we'll start with a cleanup effort. I think that'll draw some real attention. I'm still trying to reach more of the surrounding neighbors. The Southwest Musical Theater of the Southwest. Still need to reach out to them. But, if they see us in the alley, hopefully they'll just be like, hey, what are you doing? And at first we'll say, we're cleaning it up. So a group of volunteers that can include you, dear listener, watcher. If you're interested and have time and have some gloves and closed-toed shoes and a little bit of a and as long as you're open to picking up trash, and you may see some drug paraphernalia out there, so be cautious. We'll be able to deal with needles as needed, foils as needed, and if there's really gross stuff like soiled underpants, things like that, don't pick it up with your gloves. We'll figure out a different thing. But at first, we'll just go through. We'll do a general cleanup, get a bunch of trash bags. I think some volunteers from State of the Heart Recovery will be out there. That'd be great. Not sure exactly who else I'll be out there. Some other people from the neighborhood will probably come on out. And we might need to do it a couple times. And then we'll also have some opportunity to chat with more of the neighbors in person, talk about some stepping stones towards making more progress. I like the idea of wood chips. Crystal, who lives over there, said she's afraid that they'll be set on fire. I mean, they could dry out and be set on fire. That could happen. So I think we'll have to, when I meet with her, talk to her and see, I know she's got wood chips in the front of her house, see if she's had any problems with those being on fire, or if she's afraid that, the whole alley would go up. If it brings up the point of maybe, if we get some beautification, and if we do have a mulch of some type, wood chips, something, if it rains, they stay pretty damp for quite a while, and I know it goes months without raining. But then if a fire is started back there, we should make sure we have water, and also we'll have plants there. So, while it is within the realm of possibilities of increasing the fire risk, we can mitigate that to a certain extent, especially, and also we can keep in mind if there are wooden structures or structures in which that would catch fire close to and abutting the alleyway. We can do hardscaping in those areas and prevent the wood from being the mulch, if it were that, from being in direct contact. I think there are some decent mitigation strategies that we can talk about, because I think wood mulch makes a lot of sense. But if not that, maybe we call it something else. Maybe we just call it compost. And so it's more like soil instead of mulch. Perhaps we use soil. Especially too, I think a lot of it that is asphalt, and so we either have to crack up the asphalt. It is possible, but I don't know if we're there yet. We might have to get permission for that too. The city's on board with having this conversation. Our city councilwoman, Nicole Rogers, is great and wants to support this. And so, within reason, but we can set up meetings if we need to do that sort of stuff. If we need to get some money for, I don't know, buying certain things or hiring a contractor for something, or for maybe getting permission and looping in the correct people if we want to smash up some asphalt, or maybe she wants to come pick up trash with us. It's a good photo op too. I hope that's not insulting. Yeah, I think that'll be cool. Emily's into it. Emily, board member Emily, mentioned to me that Nicole Rogers was doing a constructive conversations meetup recently at a bar on Harvard. And so I went along and met Emily there, and then she stood up and spoke very, I think, articulately, ironic, very articulately, with great articulation, about, I think, a challenging topic. I won't even get into what it was, but she spoke well for the neighborhood. So thanks very much, Emily, for taking the bold move, because I don't love to raise my hand at those things, but you stood up in front of a lot of people, and I think represented the neighborhood well. So thanks for doing that. And it overlaps with this alleyway project. I should have said that. There's going to be so much video editing here. Strong towns. You know what they are? They're cool. They're interesting. Strong Towns is, go to strongtowns.org and get up to speed. You'll learn everything there. It's an idea about how to create stronger towns in a lot of ways. It's about looking at what they think works, what doesn't work, and encouraging people to, like from grassroots level, pursue things that they think work. There's a local chapter of Strong Towns started. I think it was started by a coworker and friend of mine, Brandy, who I met with the other day, previous coworker, and they're doing all sorts of interesting things, from really engaging people on civic interaction and encouraging them to go to stay involved, have opinions, go to city council, understand how the process works, and understand how to, if you think the process isn't working, or if you think, for example, like a zoning change should come through, how to make that happen. And it's complicated and it's not immediate, but it's a pretty cool mix, I think, of energy and ideas. So if you're interested in that very vague description, or if after you go to the website and you read a bit and watch a couple of videos or something like that, and you're like, oh wow, cool, I am hoping to have someone who, I'm also interested in that stuff. I'd like to partner up with other people and sort of like have a Fair West contingency that can kind of stay in the loop there. They have meetings, I think once a month, like general meetings, and they have subgroups and stuff like that. And they talk about a whole wide range of issues. It's hard to keep up, I think, but it's easier with other people who share the interest. So everybody who I kind of collaborate with and talk about strong towns with is currently living in other neighborhoods. So if you're interested at all, just ask me about it a little bit more. So if you find things like traffic circles kind of a compelling thing to talk about, or if you're frustrated when you try and cross Lomas and it fucking sucks, or you try and cross San Mateo and it sucks even harder, then you would probably like the ideas put forward by Strong Towns, because they are trying to address things like that in a very practical way. If you're frustrated with it seeming like your city is not figuring out how to rejuvenate certain aspects, but it doesn't seem like people are really bringing solutions to the table that make sense to you, check out Strong Towns, because I think sometimes they not only offer critique of why a number of U.S. cities have issues in the way they do, but they also try and connect you to action. I won't exactly call them solutions, but action that is thought out and tries to progress our current situation into a different trajectory, push it, and to be engaged and involved and empowered. And so, it also, for myself, brings a certain amount of like optimism that can be really hard to maintain. So it's also a pretty, I think, optimistic group. That's great. Feels nice. Neighborhood forum. Neighborhood forum still exists. I haven't posted there in a long time. Last activity is about a year ago, really. I didn't know what to use it for. At one point, I tried to get people to upload their addresses and contact information so that it would be a repository if you need to reach out to somebody. It could be useful. It could be useful still. So that stuff exists there, and it's protected such that only people who, at the moment, I have approved can access certain sections that are marked as like for members only. And so I started creating a couple more sections that are members only. Some are open to everybody. So if I have information like the state fair contract that, I don't care who sees it. Sometimes if we get press inquiries, I send them there. Then I post into the general section of the forum, and anyone can see it. But I've made a few more private sections that require you to be a registered user to not only post to, but also just to see. And that's where we can, I think, have some pretty interesting conversation within the neighborhood. Not on Facebook, not on Nextdoor. I think that'll allow us to have a tighter focus. There's no ads. There's no app. There's no push notifications to you. There's no demand to respond immediately. There may be hurt feelings that come up, and if we need to, if people are not being polite, then we don't have to deal with it only online. We can try and be neighborly. One can hope. I'll try and be neighborly. Anyway, if somebody else wants to help be an administrator, maybe we have if we ever do have disputes that erupt on there, that come through on there. I don't really think that's going to be a big issue, but if we do, we can talk about it. It's fine if you loop me in, or if you don't want me, maybe we'll have some other people who want to be administrators. If you want to be someone who helps to administer the site and just stay on top of things, log in from time to time. If you get a message and someone says something inappropriate is being posted or has a complaint, just so that we they can either bring it up there or then come to a board or a monthly meeting, and under when we get to the website subcommittee, or maybe bring it up then, or bring it up at some point. You can bring it up to me, and best to do it in person or call me. If you don't have my phone number, you just gotta find me in person. I walk my dog almost every day at the park. Or ask a neighbor, or send me an email. That's fine too. But please include your phone number. Sometimes I like to call instead of email back. It's just I'll respond faster that way. Or I'll make you a YouTube video. No, I won't. I'll be respectful. Vacant property talk. What's the goss? Well, let's see, there's property on Alvarado right now that there was some progress on doing work to it and getting it back from being yellow tagged in a substandard state into moving closer to being livable and to having some, I think it might be, I'm not sure entirely what the owner is going to do with it at the end, probably sell it. But right now it's progress is stalled. And so trying to figure out what we can do to help progress that along. So I've reached out to a couple of neighbors, talked to the owner of the property, also reached out to the city. There's been a little bit of movement, but I'm trying to stay up to date on, if there is a roadblock. For example, if the zoning department or code enforcement were to say that something was required and the owner was needing to come up with that, perhaps the neighborhood association can help navigate some of that bureaucracy. I found a small group of us that seem to like that kind of figuring out how to get things done. It's not just about the bureaucracy, though, right? It's about also trying to not waste time. This is essentially volunteer time. So how to figure out, like, okay, what's going on? Why is progress paused? Who wanted it paused? It wasn't the owner in this situation. Okay, what do we need to do to unpause it? And so that, I would say, falls under the details of that. I'm being vague on because this is the internet. But in our small meetings, I think it is important and interesting that we can talk in real details what the address is, who the owner is, what the conversation is that we had. And we need to also be ethical about that. And so not trying to swoop in and, take a property for ourselves or to leverage this information for our commercial gain. Certainly, that's a consideration. So anyway, property and zoning subcommittee, that's where we talk about this junk. And I'll post from time to time somewhat vague details, but I'll get more I'll try and get more specific about, like, how many properties we've been looking at. I won't give the address, I won't give contact information, but if you need that stuff, come to the subcommittee and talk to us and try and participate and learn. That's it. Only an hour and 4 minutes long. Dinner's ready. All in a day's work. That was a few days' work. End of ramble.